What are your names?
My name is Marie Ledford.
My name is Jerry Ledford.
When and where were you born?
I was born February the 25th, 1943 in Rutherfordton County.
And I was born January 16th, 1940 in Cleveland County. I was born at home. I think the doctor, they had called a doctor and doctor came, but most people were born at home in those days. A lot of them was. And I remember my mother assisting after I got 7 or 8 years old. I remember someone having a baby in the neighborhood, and she went and helped when the doctor didn't come, So those kids were born at home, and I think Marie was too.
I was. In the bed I sleep in now. Different mattress, but same bed frame.
Different sheets.
Yep, we change sheets in the mattress.
Do either of you have any siblings?
I had one brother. He's deceased.
I had 3 brothers and a sister. I got one brother deceased next to me. He had been handicapped since he was 13 with ankylosing spondylitis. He really had a heart attack. It wasn't a disease, but he built his life with that handicap. He was like paralyzed. He couldn't bend. He could either stand up or lay down. He couldn't bend at all. He walked on crutches. John, until he was about 12, 13, we'd play ball together. I'd hit him grounders and stuff like that. He was very athletic. But this disease started, and no one knew what it was then. It was some kind of arthritis is all they knew. It was some kind of arthritis. That's what they kept saying, some kind of arthritis. But he gradually got slower and slower and couldn't do things. And I had to do things like I'd hook my bicycle to his and pull it with a rope and stuff. I kind of carried him around for a while when he was younger. Even after we got grown, I still lifted him out of places and stuff, But and he ended up married, 2 kids, a boy and girl, and grandchildren. He died about when he was 64. So he lived a pretty good life with that kind of handicap. He was very intelligent. He did income tax and books and things like that. He was very intelligent.
Jerry's mother used to say that God made him handicapped to keep him from killing himself.
Yeah, he was a worker. He really was working.
He was a smart man.
When he was always industrious like that. When he was 3, I remember him picking cotton when he was 3 years old. This is back in the week, and we grew cotton everyone grew cotton in the 40s because the government, I guess, the military probably caused the cotton prices to raise, so it's what everyone grew. But we were cotton farmers when we were young in the 40s. We lived. We were very poor. Most of the people around us the same way. We didn't know the difference, And had no plumbing. We got electricity when I was 5 years old. I remember watching them. I could take you right now and show you the pole that they put the transformer on when I was 5 years old, watching them put that thing up there. But I was 5 before we got electricity, and probably was before I lived in a house with running water. I was probably up in my teens, And I told you this one time before this had to be when I was very young, because it was maybe before I started school. Once we got electricity and people got running water, they started talking about building in their back porch and putting a toilet, inside. And I thought, well, you know what a porta-john smells like outside toilet's a lot worse than that. And I think, I'm gonna put that toilet in the house. I can't imagine that. Where you eat and sleep and all that stuff.
Marie, can you tell us about yourself growing up?
I just had the one sibling. He was born when I was 3. So I was basically a mom all my life. I took care of him. I can remember carrying him on my hip, teaching him to walk. Being a mom's all I ever wanted to be. I never wanted to be a career. I always liked being a mom. And I have a picture of my mom and I in a dress that she made herself and me. That was my earliest memory, was sewing with Mom. And the dresses that Mom and I have on, she made by hand. She sewed by hand. She didn't have a machine. I remember later up in school, she would make school dresses, but she would cut them out. She didn't have patterns either. She'd sort of guess, and cut it out and pin it together and go to Grandma's and sew on that old pedal machine. And it was like music, It's like a machine when they get that thing going. It just go wide open.
The sewing's a real skill, I'm telling you, it really is. And that was custom in those days. Most women could sew. My mom made us shirts, and she made dresses for my sister. But most of them could sew. It's the old pedal sewing machines. I remember Mom getting an electric sewing machine. That was a big deal, I'm telling you, when she finally got her a Singer sewing machine. As a matter of fact, Marie was doing alterations for Belk's farmer store when she retired, which is pretty tough. That's pretty tough sewing. When you start altering man's pants and suits and some of the stuff they had to do to make it look like it come from the factory that way, only it was shorter or something. And it's a real skill. I remember, and Marie was in the drapery business for about 10 years. Herself, she run the business. And we had two little girls live across the street. They'd stay with us in the afternoon, stay with Marie in the afternoon. They'd come home early one day. It was snowing, and she was real particular. She wouldn't get out in the snow with her shoes on or whatever. So Marie picked her up, laid her on her sewing table, and cut her out her pair of sweatpants and sewed them up and put her on right there. And she wore them sweatpants
4 years.
Yeah, she wore those sweatpants to her legs sticking that far out the bottom of the
She wore them till she called them her Michael Jackson pants. They come up on her calves. But that was my greatest accomplishment, was sewing. I did wedding dresses, wedding parties. That was a great I was very
and you
proud
talk
of
about
that.
drape. What impressed me is they did drapes for big companies like Ryan Stice and Far City. They actually done drapes for our embassy in Washington. So they really did some sewing.
High dollar stuff.
Yeah.
Marie, Jerry talked about that his dad they did cotton farming growing up. What did your father do?
He was textiles, worked in the cotton mill. Started out as a weaver, and then he became a loom fixer. Was very good at what he did. He ended up in his later years going to Alabama and teaching loom fixing. And he did all this with no education. He had a third grade education. He was illiterate. We would move from Mill Hill to Mill Hill, and we would have to teach Dad his address. He could write his name, and we would practice forever and ever and ever writing his address. But he had a tremendous sense of humor. He was never embarrassed that anybody knew, because nobody knew. Mom she went to work with him when I was in the 5th grade. Nobody ever knew that he was illiterate, because Mom worked beside of him. She ordered supper when they'd order meals, and she filled out any paperwork he had to be filled out. Nobody ever knew that. He was really a genius at fixing looms and figuring. I thought they built houses in their later years, he and a couple of the men he worked with. I don't know how he figured footage and how many feet and how much of this, but he did. He would do it on sheets and sheets and sheets of paper, but he could figure it without education. It's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, he was. He's very, very good at mathematics. And like I say, that wonderful sense of humor. His whole family there was 24 of them. My grandmother had, the first grandmother had 12 children. She died in childbirth. And then my grandmother had 12 children. So Grandpa was a dinger. He was a super old man. And Grandma says she put him in the nursing home when he was in his late 70s, and she used to say he'd aggravate her death grabbing her dress tail when she'd walk by. So I don't think he ever gave that up. I had an aunt and an uncle on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. The aunts were like 2 years older. The uncles were like a year younger. We called them change-of-life babies. And it always just aggravated them to death, but that's what we call them, change-of-life babies. They're not right because they're change-of-life babies. It was fun.
Now, Jerry, your father was very tall, right?
Yeah.
You go right ahead.
Go ahead. He's 6'8", born in 1905. So there was not that much height in those days. He couldn't find clothes. He wore 15.5 Triple E shoes. He could order shoes and clothes from Sears, and that was about it. He had one pair of size 16 low-quarter shoes. But it was hard. It was hard. Even the bed, his feet hung off the bed, and the bedrooms wasn't heated. He'd get frostbitten toes. Yes, sir. On the bottom of his toes, he'd get frostbitten sometime. I remember going to the hospital before he passed away. He passed away before he was 55 with hardened arteries, which is a old person's disease. Anyway, but in the hospital, he'd tell them not to tuck that sheet in. You know how you got to do the sheets the nurses did in those days. He'd tell them not to tuck the sheet in. They said, we have to do that. Well, he'd tear the sheets out during the night. His feet would be sticking through the sheet the next day. Now, I was telling Marie the other day, I remember going in one time and the doctors had him bent over counting his vertebrae. They just sure he had an extra one because his back was so long, you know.
Now, was there any height difference between your parents?
Mom was 5'2". I've got a picture of dead mom and my sister. My sister was older. She was 6 years older than me. So she'd born in 1932, 34. Anyway, I got a picture of when she was about 3 years old, and mom and dad, and mom come up to about just above his waist, and Ann come up about his knee or something. You know? It was strange looking.
Marie, would you care to share with us the Tata story?
The what?
The Tata story.
Is that my story?
Is that your mom? Or Tatas?
Don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, the boom. the mom having her breast, she had to...
You start at the beginning and...
My mother had a biopsy one time. She had a huge bust, and when she went to work in the cotton mill, it wasn't air conditioned. She would wear cotton shirts that had to be cotton, very loose fitted, and she would pin them where the button is and between the button, where the button is and between the button. She would have a string of safety pins that long every morning. She'd stand and unbutton, and she'd just be soaking wet every morning. Well, like I say, she's very self-conscious of the huge bust. Well, she had a tumor. Wasn't really a tumor. It was like a milk pocket or something. But they told her going into surgery that if it was cancerous, they would remove the breast. So, she went in knowing that, and she came out. She came out and was coming down the hall, and I was going to meet her, and they was pushing her in the bed. She was saying, "Oh God, I still got both of them." Thank you, Lord, I got both of them. She never wore a button-up shirt again. She wore knit tops. She said she had made a deal with God. If he let her keep her boobs, she'd never be ashamed of them. So she wasn't. Daddy was several times. Are you going to wear that?
Could one or both of you tell me, how did you two meet?
We met at my aunt's house. She lived in Cleveland County. She had 2 girls that went to school with Jerry. So I got to go every summer and spend a week with her, or with the girls. And that's how I met Jerry. I dated his best friend. I met him. He lived beside of my aunt where I spent the summers. And I dated him, and he brought Jerry up with him, and he dated my best friend. And then we went up on the parkway or something one Saturday evening, and she got mad at Jerry, and she crawled in the front seat with my dad, and I just crawled in the back seat with Jerry. Well, we kind of liked it. So we never crawled back. We stayed that way. That was 54 years ago.
Yeah, it was 54 this past July. We got married a year later, which means we've been married 53 years. We've still got a receipt from the Harvest Drive-In. We bought 2 milkshakes, and they cost like 30 cents, 25 cents, and 35 cents, I think, something like that.
That's wonderful.
That was in 1962.
Jerry, would you tell me about your military experiences?
Okay. I actually got drafted into the military during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And when I went in, they said, "What do you want to be? What do you want to do?" You know, you're talking about going on. What do you mean? You drafted me and I get a choice? No, you don't. But what would you like to do? I said, well, I told them I liked things. It was a little complicated or whatever, you know. I ended up in the Signal Corps, so I was able to copy Morse code. They give us like ABC or 3 letters, and they run it to us a few times. Then they went back and tested us, and I was able to copy that. So, and also I could type. I don't know if they knew that. It was radio teletype operator. I'd learned to type in school. A buddy and I decided to take a typing class in school because that's where all the girls was. You know, the boys didn't take typing. So I ended up working out in there as a radio teletype operator. But I ended up in Korea. I was in Korea when Kennedy got shot. I was on guard duty when Kennedy got shot, and they started bombing North Vietnam while I was in Korea. So I was a Vietnam war area. But I probably never spent no time in Vietnam because of what I did. The communications, long-range communications, and we used Enigma machines, which scrambles and descrambles things, and it was kind of in those days they were really high secret stuff. It's not now because of computers and everything. But during Second World War up through the 50s, probably 60s, I think they changed it maybe in the 80s where they released all that stuff, you know.
And Jerry, what did you do after the military?
I worked in textiles a little bit in South Carolina when I first got out, but then I went to work for General Electric. Found out I could go to school on a GI Bill, so I took Catawba Community College, took a class, and I majored in business and data processing. And in those days, data processing was punched cards. I mean, they talk about Twitter and all that now, the limited characters, 80 characters in a card, and that's what you're limited to in writing a program. So you may have to have 2,000 cards to read into a machine just to compile it and get your program out to program the machine. I got a job as a computer operator. I worked for General Electric. I went to work for General Electric, and I got a job as a computer operator, and then as a analyst programmer. And we hung with those cards longer than most people. But by the time I retired, the PC had come about, the internet was starting pretty good, and I retired in 95. So I knew the PC we were doing our own desktop publishing and all that stuff. We didn't have secretaries anymore. So I came from a cotton field to that. I would feel bad about that, you know. Young people will understand that the first computer I worked on had 14K of memory, not gigs, not 14K of memory. That's 14,000 bits of memory. The punched card was fed into it. It had to be online reading those cards in. The printer had to be online and actually run the printing out. And we could store things on data on tapes. That was it. The first computer. And that wasn't the first computer made. The first one made was the 650, come out in 1956. IBM come out with the 650, and it didn't have the magnetic tape. It just had the card reader and the printer. Of course, it had those cards could be sorted and printed. You could print on them and do things with the cards. With that goes back. The IBM card goes back. Actually, they did the census in 1890, I think, with IBM cards. The Hollerith code. The code is in the IBM cards. It's called a Hollerith code. And they used it to do the census in 1890, so it's been around a while. That type had. It started in the early part of the century, probably 20th. In the federal government during World War II bought an awful lot of IBM taproom equipment. I know this from the code breaking in the Army, in the military. They used it for code breaking.
Jerry, can you tell me what dressing at work was like back when you started working for GE, and the way that styles have changed, got more casual?
Oh yeah. When I first got into data processing, the IBM kind of was everything was IBM those days. We didn't have that many companies in the business. IBM was it. And I can't think of the guy's name. The old man was head of IBM for so many years. Everyone had to wear a three-piece suit, white shirt and three-piece suit. I'm talking about the guy that comes out and works on your printer with all the ink and dust, and he comes out there dressed like. He comes out there. He has to dress like that. So they dressed like that for years, and we ended up having to wear a coat and tie and everything to work for years. I remember probably up in the 80s, they finally loosened up on things, and our bosses said, okay, you can come casual. Casual for about a week, and we had some major problems. He decided the place had just gone to pot since we quit wearing and made us start wearing ties again. Like it made a difference, And I went back to college. I went back to Gardner Webb while I was general elected, paid her tuition, and I went back to Gardner Webb and got my 2 years, so I got a degree from Gardner Webb, business management. I got a 4-year degree in business management.
At the ripe old age of 46.
That's right. I had to take a class in physical ed. I had to take a physical ed class, and you can imagine I'm still in pretty good shape. I was telling somebody the other day I played on a basketball team till I was 50 years old. And she said, in high school? And I said, yeah, that's the year I graduated. I had to quit. But I really did. I played on a team till I was 50 years old.
Marie, can you tell me about your working and also raising children? How did that work out for you?
Wonderful. I was real good with my hands, so the wonderful part about then and now was jobs. That's the main difference in our society is jobs. I could get 3 jobs any day. We had knitting, double knit, sock mills. Hickory had all kinds of industries, and I ran them all. I tried all of them, but I would quit in the summertime, and I would stay home and keep kids and babysit friends' kids. I usually had 5 or 6 kids all summer, and it was wonderful to be able to do that. And then when like I say, my work, I just made enough so we could go to the beach in the summer and maybe buy a pair of shoes. I have a shoe fetish. But I could get a job anywhere, anytime, and it was nice to be able to stay home with children. And I always loved children, still do. I like having a little one. You can do so many fun things if you've got a little one, like play in the water hose. And you can't do that with just you. People think you're crazy, but if you've got a little one, you can just do all kinds of things that's fun. So I keep a child. I have a 5-year-old great-grandson now. We played in the water all summer. The water hose squirted each other. Our next door neighbor and dear friend died when she was 48 and left 3 little children. She said, grandchildren. She asked us to be grandmother and grandfather to them. She knew they wouldn't have one. To take them to see Christmas lights and play with them. So we did that. We enjoyed them. I have a picture of Jerry walking her down the aisle, and the little boy in the cap and gown is hers. And we're enjoying him right now. He's the receiver of all our attention.
She's talking about her granddaughter. We call her granddaughter, and her great-grandson, her son, is who she's talking about now. People thought she really was our granddaughter because she ended up being 6 feet tall. She is as tall as I am and everything. But she was born, and Marie actually carried her from the birthing room to the nursery. And from the time she was just a baby, we had her every weekend.
Marie, how many children did you and Jerry have?
We had 2 boys. Jeff will be 50 this year. Joel is 47. They were very, very close. Still are. If they get together, they'll end up picking and wrestling. We enjoyed our children. They're both fine young men. And our oldest grandson just turned 18, so he's gone. Now, the little one in Florida she's just 13, but we don't get to see her near as much as we'd like to.
When did you 2 come to Marion?
Daddy came to Marion when I was 13, going into my freshman year of high school. It was horrible. I came from a 12-year school, 1 through 12, where you knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody. You growed up together. And I came to Marion and went in and knew no one. And it was, I don't remember if that was the year that Marion High opened at West Marion, or if it was the second or third, but it was the school was new. And everybody there had grown up together and went to school.
She's talking about East Marion represent.
Right.
It's East Marion Middle School now, or junior high, whatever it is. Yeah.
But it was hard to make friends. And I came from the Mill Hill, and they made a huge difference in the Uptown kids and the Mill Hill kids. There was a huge difference in that. And I don't know that teachers did or the children, I think more or less it was the children that made. I don't think teachers did. I think it was more the Uptown kids sort of shunned the Mill Hill kids. But it was a wonderful life. You lived on the Mill Hill. You knew everybody. You were on walk to church. You either could walk out to the Baptist church or up to the Methodist church. But I know MYF on Sunday afternoon, there would be 10 or 15 of us. It would just be like everybody in the neighborhood would go to MYF. I don't know if they even have MYF anymore. The young people's groups in the Methodist church, do they still have that?
What did NYF stand for?
MYF, Methodist Youth Fellowship. Or I think the Baptist was BTU, Baptist Training Youth.
Sure.
Yeah. But it used to be it was just young people. We had a teacher, Buck Green, who would take us out to Catawba Grill, and we'd get Cokes. It was a neat experience to have that group of young people that had a Christian atmosphere, but you wasn't really studying, Christianity, but you was practicing it. Didn't know it.
When did you and Jerry come back to Marion, and where did you live?
We came back in 1995. I retired in 1995. Marie's mother died in 1989, and her dad died in 1972, and we kept they had a house and 3 acres, well over 3 acres land down in Glenwood, and we kept that, and we bought her brother's half of it, and we just kept it, and then I was able to take her early retirement in 95, and we come back up here in 1995.
This is a question we like to ask people. How is the world different today from when you were young?
Jobs.
Yeah.
And respect. I don't know what it is. There's a thing about, and when I was young, the president of your country, you would never call him by his first name. He was the president of the United States of America, and he was very respectful of that. I don't care if you liked him or if he was a Democrat or Republican. You were respectful of that. You don't have that today.
Yeah.
The police, of course, you don't have that respect for the police department. My granddaughter's husband just quit the police department because it's a terrible place to work anymore. There doesn't seem to be the respect that we used to have, and I miss that. I think that was important, and I don't know how we'll get it back. The children are so, I guess it's undisciplined. I know I go to Walmart sometimes late at night, and I see little children that are 3rd, 4th grade running around in there. They're so sleepy they can't, and I know they're not going to get home into bed at a decent hour to get up. I think 2/3 of our children are tired. I think the screaming and yelling and fits that they throw is they're just tired. I don't think they get enough rest. I think there's too much television. When we were children, the children had Saturday morning cartoons, period. There was nothing. We might watch Lone Ranger or some 30-minute show through the week. You didn't watch television through the week. The parents did, but you didn't. It was geared more toward adults than children. Sunday night was a special night for us. We would come to Marion, and eat with Mom and Dad and hurry home because that was Walt Disney World. Come on, it was like a 2-hour show once a week. And it was a wonderful family thing. That was our family time, on Sunday night to see Walt Disney. And Disney's on 24 hours a day now, and some of it's just crappy. But I think respect, jobs, and you were talking about, I'm going back now, you were talking about difference in the toilets, and we had an outside toilet too. I remember in the mill houses, they built little porches on to the houses and put the bathrooms in. But better than inside toilets was toilet tissue. I don't know if anybody's thought about it, but getting toilet paper was rough doing. We were very lucky because there was a little store in front of my grandmother, and she sold shoes. And there was a white tissue paper like in those shoes. So that was our toilet paper. But a lot of people use Sears and Roebuck's catalog, and it wasn't very sanitary. It just wasn't. But toilet tissue was a great invention. And we saw that in our time. I mean, we have seen so many things. I can't imagine our children seeing as much as we've seen in our lifetime. It's just like the computers have gone from huge things to these little handhelds on a watch now. Yeah. Jet planes, microwave ovens, all of that we've saw in our lifetime. It's
it keeps getting faster and faster, it seems like. Things just get faster and faster. But Marie was complaining the other day about people with their iPods. They can't hardly make it out there. I said, it's just like the ham radio. The CB radio. Everybody had to have a CB radio. I said, nah, it's just another toy there, I
think one of the saddest things I've seen is a family out to eat together. We were at a restaurant. The 2 little girls were maybe 5, 7, and they come in the restaurant. It's like the whole family, grandparents and parents, it looked like, I don't know. But they were right beside us. They all pull out chairs, and the 2 little girls set up their little iPod, whatever they are. They set up their little, and they're sitting there watching a movie while the whole family's. I put that thing up and talk. I can remember sitting out on the porch with my daddy's family, when they would sit. I love to hear them sit and talk about things they did or fights they got in or different. It was wonderful hearing that, how they grew up. I don't think people listen anymore. They're too busy. I'm going to lecturing now. Got that.
Well, actually, that leads me in, and you've already given some kind of towards this, but what advice would you give a young person today?
Stay in school, get as much education as you can. I remember when I worked in the computer room, for a pretty good while I was supervisor in the computer operation, and he'd bring some college kids in there and high school kids to tour the plant, and they'd come through the computer room, and I'd tell them, learn everything you can about the computer because that's where it's going. I guess they know it now. This is back in the 80s, but right now, well, you got to get the education. You can't go to a textile plant or a furniture plant and work. You've got to have some education. The more, the better. The more you know, the better. And I'd like to see high schools with more technical high schools. Where in vocational. I think they've got vocational stuff now in high school where they learn a career other than academic. Business and other things like that. But there's some kids that can't be rocket scientists. That's just the way it is.
My advice would be have fun.
Yeah,
while
absolutely.
you can, do it while you can. A lot of people that we worked with, that Jerry worked with, career people especially, would put off taking vacations or doing things till they retired.
Yeah.
And they never made it. They never made it.
I saw several of them. We'd get up to 5 weeks of vacation a year, and you could bank your vacation, bank that week of vacation, put that money into your savings, like 401k now. It was savings then, but they wouldn't take but a couple of 3 weeks of vacation at the most, and they were planning on this. By the time they were 60, they ended up, I don't know, a couple of them that died when they was 60, early 60s.
Your life's short. Even if you live to be
You burn yourself
72, it's short, and it's having fun. Have fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy it where you're at. Enjoy your children, especially when they're little, and then you'll enjoy them when they get older. When they're 50. Oh.
I skipped a question we were going through. How did you start volunteering for the McDowell Senior Center?
I helped a lady that she had broke her hip. She had no children. She was a widow. She was our neighbor, and I would go up and help her. She was a good friend of my mom and dad's when they were all living, she and her husband.
She didn't have any kids. They didn't have any kids, so she didn't have anyone.
She had married late in life, and she had hearing problems. She's in terrible shape. But I would go up and help her put her stockings on, and the couple came every day at lunchtime and brought her meal, and I thought that was the neatest thing. She would eat half of it and save half of it for supper. And very, very small eater. She ate just a little dabs. But the days that she didn't have it, I would go up and try to fix her at least one meal a day. I know on her 80th birthday, we went and bought fish. She loved fish, and we bought fish and took it for her 80th birthday. Just Jerry and I and her. It was so sad.
Yeah, she had one sister who lived down in South Carolina.
Yeah, but
I think she had one daughter or something, one grandson. So there wasn't many people in the family.
But anyway, I was real impressed by the meals, and she told me when I asked her, the lady that brought the meals was Dot Norton, and I asked her about the meals, and she told me that it was all a volunteer program. So I came and checked it out, and I worked in the kitchen with a lot of that's gone now, but we just had a wonderful time. We had the best time back there. And I think the senior center's one of the neatest things McDowell has done.
We started delivering meals about 10 years ago, I guess, probably 10 years ago. Now we're doing 2 a week. Sometimes we'll get it down to 1 a week, but it's usually 2 a week we do.
And when you say 2, you mean?
2 days, 2 different days. We do Wednesday and Thursday. So it's kind of tough on the lady here. When we're out, she's got to find somebody to cover for the 2 days instead of just 1 day. You know, it's easier. So it's kind of we got to have some good people here to have a volunteer to come in on the days that they don't normally deliver. But it works out. It's worked out.
I delivered meals. You can use this or not, but this was the neatest experience. We delivered meals down behind where I was when Drew and I got married. It was down on 221, across from the Ace Hardware. And the little boy that lived up on the hill behind us was my brother's best friend. And we delivered meals to him and his mother.
She's in her 80s. She's mid-80s, but close to 90. He's got to be 60s probably, but he's in real poor health, on oxygen all the time and everything.
But I went in and I said, Tommy, do you remember me? And he said, Doots. Doots was a nickname that nobody ever used but my brother. And he grabbed me and hugged me and he said, oh, Doots, how good it is to see you. And that was just such a wonderful...
Yeah, it's the people we deliver to, we've had a lot of people to question where this is worthwhile, you know. And I keep telling them we lost 3. We had 3 to pass away in 1 week. So they are pretty. Some of them are pretty destitute. Some of them are older and not able to get meals for themselves. So it is a worthwhile thing.
It really is. We both really approve of the Meals on Wheels.
Ledford, thank you for letting me interview you today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I enjoy going back over the old times.
Reminiscing.
Yeah.